Okay, so we're going to add in our navigation, our actual navigation now, but just one thing I spotted here was, just before we go any further, we have a bit of a space between our heading 1 and our heading 2, and I actually didn't want that to be there. So, and you can see in our CSS where the rule was. We had a heading 1 margin bottom of 0. This one should be margin top, not margin bottom. So the H2 one should be margin top 0. So we'll save that and we'll put that to the server, and if we refresh it, there we are. We have it flush up against the top now. Let's go back in here and let's start creating our navigation. Now, the most efficient way to add in navigation is by using an unordered list, and this is how we do that. We put in our UL tags, our unordered list tags. So let's create a bit of room for ourselves. So we're going to put in maybe four buttons. We do our home, about, products, and whatever. So in order to do that, let's create some list items, and inside of those we create some link tags. So the href, and let's just leave them as blank for now. And how we leave them as blank is we just put in a hashtag. So we'll close out our li, and then we'll close out our opening a tag, and our li tags are closed as well. So we'll make 4 copies of that. So that's our 4 links created. So we'll call the first one home, and we'll say the second one is about us, and the third one we'll call products, and the last one we'll just call services. Now, these are purely aesthetic. There's no reason to, they're not going to be for anything, so I'm just calling them just to have them show up. So if we save that and we put that up to the server, and we'll have a look at it, and you'll see that it's going to be pretty basic looking at this point. So let's start styling our navigation. So we'll go back to our Dreamweaver and we'll go to the style sheet, and the first rule we want to create, and what we're going to do again is we're going to target everything inside of the site header nav. So we're going to use that one again. So if we paste that there, and it's actually going to be the first parameter we want to affect is the unordered list that's situated inside of the site header and inside of the nav div. So our first parameter is going to be the list style, and the list style is actually what you see here, the little dots there. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove those. So in order to do that, we give it a list style, and we're going to give it a list style of none. The next parameter we're going to give it is we're going to give it a margin of 0 auto. That generally gives it 0 margins at the top and bottom, and auto on the left and right. The next one we're going to give it is we're going to give it a margin left, and this will become apparent in a minute. And I'm going to give it a margin left property of minus 40 pixels, because there's a certain amount of padding in it, and I want to make sure that it's thrown right up against the left hand side of the navigation bar. So if we save that and we put that up to the server and we go back and we refresh that, as you can see, it's thrown it right up against the left hand side. It's taken out the little dots. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that these are all lined up this way. So how we do that is we go back and we create a new CSS rule, but this time we want to target the list items contained inside the site header. So if we copy that, again we'll give ourselves a little bit of room down here, we'll paste it in and we'll close out that, and the first thing we want to do is we want to float them left, and the next thing we want to do is we want to display them in a line, which is basically how we're doing it here, is display inline. So if we save that again, put that back to the browser, and we go back up here and we refresh the page, nothing is happening. Sorry, that's the problem I have there, is the li. So if we save it and we put it up and we'll go back and refresh, we're displayed inline. the next thing we want to do is we want to create a rule for the what I want to do is I want to put a kind of a border to the right of each of the to the left of each of the buttons, so that it looks like there's a space and a line between them. So we're going to create that rule here now. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to continue creating the rules, and when we have them all done, we'll look at it in the browser. Now what I want to do here is I want to put a border to the left of the particular links, but I want to exclude the first one. So how I do that is we're going to target this site header nav ULLI, but in order to skip the first one we add a plus and then an LI. So what it's saying is the second link in from there on we want to target this rule add it, and this will affect all the rest of the navigation links inside except the first one. So what we want to do is we want to give it a border left. So I want to give it a 1 pixel solid and the color of BE, which again is a grey, but it's a darker grey than the background that we have. So we have that rule created. The next thing we want to create is we want to take out the underline from the links. So again we'll create that rule in there, and what we want to do is we want to target the A link inside of the nav. So we'll close out the tag and we'll give ourselves a bit of room. So what we want to do is we want to remove the underline from it. So how we do that is we just add in one property, and that is text decoration, and we just give that a value of none. So we'll save that and we'll put it to the browser, and we'll just refresh and see what happens here. So we hit refresh. Nothing really seems to happen because we haven't actually given any padding, but if you look closely here you can see we've taken the underline out and we've given a slight little line between each of the links. Now they're pushed right up against one another now, but what we'll be doing is we'll be moving along and we'll be actually styling the links next. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go and we want to add in some padding. So what we want to do is we want basically to duplicate this, and we want to create what's called a pseudo state. Now there's ways of affecting different states of the links. You have your link, which is the standard link, then you have the hover attribute of it, which is what happens when you hover over it, and then you have the visited attribute, which is what happens when a link has been visited, so you are setting the state for that, and then you have the other one, which is the active state, which means that it's whatever page you're on, the link will show up a particular color as well, and they have to be listed in that order. So they have to be link, visited, hover and active, and the easiest way to remember it is LVHA. Now you don't have to use the 4 of them, but if you are listing them they have to be listed in that order. So the first one we're going to target is the link. So that's how you do it, is you give it a colon and link, and the rule that we're going to create for it, and I'm just going to close out that, and the rule that we're going to create for it first of all is we're going to give it a color. So we want the text color to be a different color. So the color I've chosen is, again, it's a dark, really dark grey, and it's #333. So that's our text color. Now the next parameter we're going to give it is we want to display them in line block, which means it's going to spread them out a little bit. So again it's going to be display, and the option is going to be inline block. So the next one we want to affect for it is we want to give it some padding. Now I'm going to throw this all into the one rule rather than naming each of the 4 of them. What I want to do is I want to give it 10 pixels padding on top, 10 pixels padding on bottom, and 25 pixels padding on either side. So how we achieve that is 10 pixels, 25 pixels, and that's that. The next property I want to do is I want to give this an actual height, and the reason I'm giving it a height will become apparent in a minute and I'll explain it. So we'll go ahead and we'll give it a height, and I want to give it a height of 20 pixels. So the reason I'm giving it a height of 20 pixels, and it'll become pretty obvious now when I explain it out, is we actually gave, if you look back up here, we gave the navigation bar a height of 40 pixels. So because we've given a top and bottom padding of 10 pixels, which adds up to 20 pixels, that makes sure, so we're giving the actual link a height of 20 pixels so that it stays within the middle. So if you add the 20 pixels there plus the 2 10s, it all adds up to the 40 pixel height. So it just guarantees that your navigation shows up the way it should show up. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to give I want to put in a text shadow element so that the text has a shadow. And again, this is another element that was introduced in HTML5. And what it does is it gives it does what it says. It gives a text to it. Now the text shadow that I want to give to it is going to be very, very subtle. And so the values we're giving it is 1 pixel horizontal, 1 pixel vertical, which means that it's going to throw it down 1 pixel and throw it to the right 1 pixel. And then the spread that we want to put on it is 2 pixels. And the spread is the actual size of the shadow for all intents and purposes. And the color that I want to give it is going to be a white, because it's against a grey background and it's going to be very, very subtle. So we give it a white. And if we save that and we'll put that up to the browser and we'll refresh, our navigation now throws itself into line, and you can see the little lines between each of the navigation things, and you can see the first one doesn't actually have one. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to create I want to create a visited color, because as you can see these links are showing up as purple, and I want to take out that. I want them to show up as the color that I want them to be, which is the similar color to what's up here. So that's showing up as a visited state. So I want to create a rule for the visited element. So we'll go back in here, and again we'll create a new rule. We'll copy this one here and we'll just change it to suit our needs. But what we want this one to be is we want this to be visited. So what we want is we want it to be, as I said, we want it to be a particular color, which is the exact same color that we had set for this here. So if we copy that and we'll paste it in there, put it up to the server, and we'll go and take a look at it, and you can see now it's changed to the proper color, to the grey color that I want it to be. So what I'm basically saying there is I want the links that are visited to stay the same as the normal link should be. So the next parameter we want to affect in here is the actual hover state. So let's copy this rule again, and we can reuse it and change it to suit our needs. So we're going to change that to hover. So we'll close out that again, give ourselves a bit of room and tab it in. So the hover state that I want to give it, and again we're going to give this a background gradient, which is the same as we did for the navigation itself, but what we're going to do is I'm going to reverse the background so that it looks different when you hover over it. But the first thing I want to affect in it is that the text will change color from the grey to a white color. So we'll copy that and we'll paste it in there, and we'll just change it from 333 to FFF, which is white. The next thing, as I said already, that I wanted to do was I wanted to create a background gradient. Now I've already gone ahead and created this, so I'm just going to copy and paste it in, and it's exactly the same. That's Colorzilla website. You can go in and create whatever navigation or whatever thing you want. So that's my gradient, slightly different color, and if you want to use the exact same one, it's the same process as before. That's your 0% color. That's your, and I have it set to 23% on this one. That's your 23% color, and then you have the same color back at your 100%. And as you can see, it's created the corresponding ones for the other browser types as well. And the last property I want to give it is I want to copy the text shadow that we gave it previously, but this time I want it to be a little bit less, a little bit more subtle. So if we copy that rule there, and then we can change it to what we want it to be. So I want to drop down the text shadow spread just down to 1 pixel instead, and the color I want it to be is, because we're changing the text to white from the grey, I want the shadow to be grey. So we change that to 333, and if we save that and we put it to the server and we go and we refresh the page, nothing has really happened there, but once we hover over, you can see the difference. And that's pretty much our navigation done. There's one little thing I want to do here, and you may notice it when you see if we hover over here, the corners of the home gradient are actually square. It's very, very subtle, but it's these little things that people notice when they go on their website. So what we want to do is we want to round out that. And how we do that is we're going to go and we're going to give our first navigation home button a class. And how we go about doing that is we're going to affect the list item. Actually, we're going to affect the A tag. So we're going to give this a class, and we'll give it a class of home, because it's the only one that's going to be affected. It's the only one that we want to make a change to. So if we go back to our style.css, and what we can do is we can copy let me see, if we copy this one here, delete that, and we'll paste our new rule in here. Now what we want to affect here is we're not going to say the A link, because we've given the A link a class, so we don't need to put the A in. So we're targeting the A element with a class of home inside the li tags, and what we want to do is we want to put the pseudo class after this. So it's the hover state of that home button that we're actually going to affect. And what we want to do is we want to remove, or we want to have some border radius added to it. So that's the border radius that we're going to add to it, and it's what it's doing here. It's going to add the 12 pixels to the top left and to the top left and the top right, and that's how we've named each of the individual corners here. So if we save that, and again we put it to the browser or to the server, and we'll save our home, our index page as well, because that has to go up too, because we actually added a class to that. If we go back to the browser now and we refresh it, you can see that the square corners are gone from the hover state, so it's actually fallen into line with the rest.